This week's episode is called Choosing Your Own Definition of Rich. In this episode, we'll discuss why having fun needs to be number one on your to-do list, what's the definition of rich that brings you lasting fulfillment, why hourly rates don't work well for business growth, and owning your life and living your life on your own terms. Now, take some time to ponder. Happiness lies when you have $1 million company, right? What version of happiness have you bought into that is honestly sucking the life force right out of your life? Now, give yourself a gift by taking a moment to answer these two very basic questions. Question 1, rich to me once meant I had to have blank. What is that? Rich to me once meant I had to have, meaning I had to possess, I had to own, I had to have what? And then secondly, answer the question, rich to me now means I get to experience what? I get to be what? So again, question 2 is rich to me now means I get to experience, I get to be, I get to share. What does rich mean for you now? Now, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. By taking this little quiz, you will discover exactly where you're making your life unnecessarily difficult and exactly where your behaviors are cutting you from the outcomes and goals you crave most. Your quiz results will pinpoint with precise accuracy the exact areas to focus on. This will immediately activate your ability to use your time and resources effectively and instantly set you on your path to create higher level gains with, you know what we want, less strain. Why not get down to the base and discover the truth about what's controlling your life right now? I challenge you. Take a few minutes. You owe it to yourself. You are worth it, and your experience of life depends on it. Give yourself the gift by honoring yourself and taking 5 minutes to invest in yourself. Take the Maximize Your Life quiz now at www.jameshepner.com/quiz and finally set yourself on the path that will lead you directly to what you want and need most now. Welcome to Weekly Wins and Losses. My name is James Hepner, former real estate entrepreneur turned self-development hacker, coach, and fulfillment strategist. Each week, we bring you a thought to wrestle with that'll help you live fully alive and gain more life. Real life is made up of both wins and losses. Both were designed for your good. That's basic reality. Without facing and learning how to embrace your losses for greater gain, you miss out. You leave 50% of your life experience on the table. So with that, let's begin the show. Welcome, friends. Today I have on the show someone who's a sparky one. Her name is Miss Tanya Fox. Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, James. I'm excited.
I'm excited. I know when I was on your show, I'm like, this woman, she's got some spark and energy. I got to have her on my talk. This is good. Tanya, after I'll just, for the audience, I'll just bring you into the awareness of who she is. So after she started her first business in 1998, she quickly realized that entrepreneurship was in her soul. And that was kind of her lifelong passion. So since then, she has owned service, retail, and franchise businesses, and still running 3 of them today. Good on you, by the way. She spends her days as a collaborative business consultant, helping business owners to repassion and start to grow again through collaboration on how to stop trading minutes for money so you can work less, but make more. That's nice. She also spends her time speaking and recording her weekly Fox Talks Trots business. Just kidding. It's not the Trots one, but business podcast. She tries to always live by her tagline, which is remember to have fun, because if you aren't having fun, why are you doing it? So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because firstly, you're a smart one. Secondly, you're a fun one. And thirdly, it's just a hoot having you and talking with you. So this is going to be a good time. I can't wait.
I'm excited.
Awesome. So here's what I think I am most curious about. I think you're, in my mind, the first time you and I talked, you're this person who talks about collaboration. But on the same lines, when you talk about collaboration, you're one of these real people who isn't just like, we need to partner, and not make any money or not move forward or whatever that looks like. But you're like, no, no, no. We do this for the soulful purpose of, you're right, being a good person. Like we just collaborate to be a good person, but there's a way that we get to, like you say, repurpose our passion, and then use that to utilize and draw things together. And it's just a hoot, and it's fun to do work and work with people, right? So talk to us a little bit. Why is it, and what had it firstly? Because I think we all want to know. What had it that you decided that having fun was essential? I know, you talk about sometimes in business, a person can feel stuck. And, we as entrepreneurs and business owners and executives, we need to remember, even in times that we are stuck or we feel stuck in the mud, as you say, we need to remember to have fun. Why is it that that's so important for you?
I think for me, it was because as an entrepreneur, and
Mm,
when I first started my businesses, I was doing it by myself.
mm,
So there was really nobody to rely on to help pulling me out. And I was also so tired of hearing myself tell everybody how much I disliked things like at work, even like when I
mm,
worked in corporate and stuff like that. Like that just seemed to be such, and still I think is today, such a narrative
mm.
that people just use, right? It's easier to complain about the stuff than say the stuff that you love, right?
Mhm,
Like if we want to hit on a topic that gets me in a lot of trouble, think of like when people complain about the self-serve at like Walmart, right? That
mm,
people are like, this is taking jobs, but I'm the person on the other side of that who's like, I actually really like them. Because when I was a little girl, all I wanted to be was a cashier, like loved pushing buttons. So to me, it's like really joyful. And I even love it when the machine at the end goes, tell us how we did today. And I'm like, you didn't do anything, but I was wonderful. Like, right. And I'm like, right. It just makes people around me laugh and stuff like that. So I think for me, I started to realize in business that I was solely responsible for my emotions and how much I
mm,
enjoyed or not enjoyed my work. And once I realized that it really was a simple decision of me going, I'm not going to feel like that anymore.
mm, mm,
And that I could do that. Now, some people out there might be go, that doesn't work. It took a long time for
mm,
me to quickly be able to change that narrative over. And now I just go,
mm,
I mean, I had it yesterday where I was in a shitty mood. Like I was just,
mm,
everything was ticking me off. It was like one
mm,
thing after the other. It felt like everything was going wrong. And I had to just sit there and go,
mm,
I will not feel stressed anymore.
mm,
I am going to clear that emotion. I'm going to clear that feeling,
mm,
and I'm going to go forward feeling happy. And I'm just going to end my day.
mm,
Like I'm just done with it.
mm,
So for me, the tagline, the motto of having fun is that reminder of I do have the power. We all have the power within us to just simply decide to change our mood, to simply decide to just change our situation.
mm,
But sometimes we get stuck in the negativity of going, well, I can't do that.
mm,
Like I
mm.
can't change how much money it is that I'm making or the clients that I have or on and on and on. But the truth is you can. And it really is just a simple decision of going, no, I'm not going to do this anymore.
That's super super smart, because we all know that outcomes are created by behaviors. So the truth is, by focusing on, I want the outcome to be X, focusing on that doesn't really help much, other than, like you're saying, I think what I'm hearing you say is focus on what you can do about it, which is, when we think about how is a mood created, if we reverse engineer and look at it like a mood comes from, and go step back, step back, step back. They say, so neuroscience or psychology talks about, we have a thought, that's what happens originally, and the thought lasts for like 6 to 90 seconds. And then during that time, we attach a thought, a thought to that. Sorry, I'll say this again. A feeling happens. A feeling happens 6 and 90 seconds, or 6 to 90 seconds. That's the span of it. But then we attach a thought to that feeling. And that's where the next stage is, we now develop mood or state. And so what you're just simply saying is, go right back, focus on what you can do, and lean on that and be there. Now, what I think is really interesting is you say that you have learned to rely on yourself in the last 5 years to pull my emotions back to where I want them. So I think that's very key. Like what we're all hearing here is that you're focusing on where I want them. You're saying, this is how I'm feeling. And so instead of being just towed away by them, by this tugboat, and it's like, yeah, I guess I get to be negative Nancy all day. You're like, no, I want them here. So what will I do about that to ensure I don't stay stuck? And staying stuck typically looks a bit like, you hear this often. People are like, well, I'm waiting for something or someone else to pull me out of that. It's like, I'm looking for the tugboat, the one that I have no control over. Is it coming? So,
Yeah.
So what speak to the listeners who perhaps are like, you know what, easy for you to say, but I've tried it. It doesn't work. Speak to that level of resistance. So the question is, how do we strengthen both our mind and body effectively? Maybe I should add, why is strengthening our mind and body even something that we might want to seriously consider implementing on a daily basis? It's all about maximizing your opportunities, maximizing your ability to experience a rich life instead of a mediocre life, maximizing your ability to bring to yourself and others around you what you were set on this earth to deliver and enjoy. What's not to love about stretching yourself and experiencing the truth about the incredible capacity that you actually have? Listen, I really value you, and I want to help you maximize your life by sharing a few of the specific strategies that have made all the difference in my life. I want you to feel mentally and physically strong so you'll be well prepared when you are most needed, so that your mind and body will be entrained to know exactly what to do when others are running for the exit signs, and so that you'll activate your ability to easily identify the opportunity no matter how challenging the situation. So, I've carefully put together a well-curated resource that will make it super easy for you. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com/self-help hacker, where you will be able to see some of my favorite books and specific biohacking modalities, supplements, and biohacking experiences that will allow you to feed your mind and body the specific and exact ingredients that will give you the mental and physical edge. Now, I should note, you'll see listed a grouping of biohacking experiences like whole body cryotherapy, bone density, etc., that you can experience at our biohacking lab located on the west coast of Canada in White Rock, BC. If you live nearby, feel free to book your session as you wish. Also, you'll want to take note of the specific discount code section that allows you to purchase products from my favorite vendors anywhere from 10 to 25% off by simply using the discount code JAMES. I hope you enjoy. To your life force, to your strength, here we go. Speak to the listeners who perhaps are like, you know what, easy for you to say, but I've tried it, it doesn't work. Speak to that level of resistance.
I think you're right. If you're sitting there going into it, it's not as easy as just simply saying, I'm going to be in a good mood. You're 100% right. And if you're sitting there going, can it be that easzy? You're right. You're right either way, because it really.
So I'm going to pause you for a second. So some of these listeners are probably getting annoyed right now, and they're going, okay, wait a minute. She's saying we're right either which way. You're like, wait a minute. This is annoying, which is great. It's like beautifully annoying, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, because it really is true. And there was a lot of times that that people go, well, I can't be happy all the time. Like sometimes stuff happens and it's really stressful. And that's true 100%. And I am not saying I walk around with like sunshines and sparkles all of the time. But when I get into those moments and I find myself that I feel like I've been angry for a long time, or like I'm in the moments where I'm like, oh my God, like this day, like everything just keeps going wrong. That's a trigger for me to sit and go, okay, do I need to be in this emotion right now? Because sometimes you do. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I have my moments. Like I said, I had one yesterday where I had to sit in the moment. I had to cry. I had to have a good cry.
Mm-hmm.
I had to, I had to get it out. I just
Mm-hmm.
needed to get it out. I just
Mm-hmm.
need it pent up. But there's a limit. There's a time limit. And so I literally set a timer and go, okay, got 10 minutes to feel sorry for myself. And I do. I
Good
mean,
job.
I go full force in that 10 minutes. Like I will sit there. I literally talk to myself in a mirror and I'm like, it's not fair. The world is all against me. Blah, blah, blah. Why does this keep happening to me? Like the tears stream down. But when that timer goes off, I sit there and I look at myself and I go, okay, we're done. Now, how do I want to feel? And sometimes that's like, you know what? I'm going to feel happy. I'm going to feel joyful. I put a stupid smile on my face that's not real. But I find that helps me to sort of convert my mood into something else. Sometimes I need to listen to a comedy skit. Sometimes I do need to have, something else that reminds me. I do a funny saying. I will save a couple of, say, reels on social media that make me laugh. But I just need that initial switch to make me realize, okay, I can be happy again. I can laugh at stuff again. And sometimes that's just like literally laughing. Sometimes I'll just laugh. And it's stupid. And when I first did it, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, okay, ha, 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 ha. But after a little while,
but that in itself is funny.
Right? Because you start laughing at yourself because you're like, okay, I'm supposed to just laugh. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, this is so dumb. And then eventually you find yourself that you're just like laughing. And sure, other people think it was really weird when I first started doing this, but the more I find that I practice it, the easier it is for me to sort of switch stuff. And I mean, sometimes you do need, that outside help of somebody else of like, hey, can you cheer me up? Can you send me something funny? And I relied a lot on, friends, other business partners to say, hey, I'm kind of a little down. Can you send me something funny? And they'd send me a meme. They'd send me like, people are so quick to be like, for sure. Like, I just found this funny thing. And it was quick to be like, oh, perfect. Thank you. That, that sort of made me laugh. So it really is just trial and error.
That's, by the way, that is like absolutely, sorry for interjecting, but I think that is absolutely precious that you allow other people the gift. And I'm going to say this lightly, but I think we all kind of know where I'm going with this. It's really lovely that you gave other people the opportunity to tap into what they too experience. And sometimes maybe they don't give themselves the gift of, and that is like, how do we process things that are uncomfortable? And so you say, can you send me something funny? So it's almost like you're setting them a reminder next time it happens for them that maybe they want to do. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah. You were saying.
Yeah. And it's true. Like sometimes, and what that does is allow them to then, like you said, allow them to, send me a message and be like, hey, I'm kind of down. Can you like say something or whatever that cheers me up? Because sometimes I get those messages when I'm down and then right away, right? So easy to help somebody else before yourself. So right away, I'm like, oh, I'm going to find something funny for them. Well, as I'm finding something funny for them, I'm changing my mood at the same time. So all of a sudden, me helping them helped me. And it's simple.
Yeah, I love that. So simple. There's a little writing right behind. So for the people observing and viewing this little show on YouTube, exactly. It's love where you are is what it says. And so my question is, what manner of work did you need to put in that would allow you the opportunity to feel worthy to love where you were? And when I say love where you are, love where you always are, meaning if you're really upset and you're in the mirror and you're crying, or then once that's done and the timer goes off, you're like, okay, time to change my state. What do I want to do now? Well, I apparently it says time to be like, laugh. I'm like, I don't feel like laughing. So you're doing that. But here's the thing. In the moment, you're going, I don't like it. But then you have this reminder, love where I am, love where you are. And you're going, okay, so staying present within that emotion is what I'm hearing. You have a block of time and stay present. And once that time is expired, you move to the next. But how did you, what did you personally do so that you feel or you develop this state of feeling worthy to be present? Some people, like, to be honest, a lot of people struggle with that. They're like, well, I like to, but I don't feel like I'm worth being present with this. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, there's something wrong with me. Right. So what
Yeah.
did you do that allowed you to be worthy to just be there in that moment? It's hard, but I can hear it in you.
Yeah.
You're doing
This
it.
one, this one was sort of an interesting one of why the love where you are hit me so hard, because for 10 years, when I first started a business, I strived so hard to live up to the expectation that I thought you were supposed to have as a business owner, which was to have a multi-million-dollar company, to have employees, and to be at the top. And I thought that is where my happiness lied. So I busted, like I worked day and night. I only took like a week of vacation in the year. I worked weekdays, weekends. Like I just worked all of the time because I felt that my happiness lied in that goal of the large company, multi-million dollars, bringing it all in. I thought that's the pinnacle. And I got there. Like I strived, I worked really hard. I busted my butt. I created really good partnerships. I got there and I was miserable.
Welcome
and I
to
went,
the party.
And I sat there and I went, this doesn't make any sense. Like I made it. I'm at the top, and I knew there was still more to go. I could, franchise and blah, blah, blah and all that. But like, I was at the top of where my goal was. Why am I still miserable? And it took me a long time. It took me over a year of trying to figure this out. And I was away and I was sitting on a beach and this old gentleman who had this like raggedy little dog walked by. And I was crying on the beach. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was feeling sorry for myself because I had a company that was bringing in over $5 million of profit. I had 30 employees. I was at the top of my game and I was crying because I was miserable.
Because it's another level that you haven't hit yet, right? It's miserable.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, the whole
right?
system is baked in something. I mean, it makes sense, and at the same time, doesn't.
Yeah. So he kind of walks by and he's like, "Are you okay?" So I just like blurt out this whole story of like what's going on, and now I feel like a horrible human being because I shouldn't be miserable. Like I should be the happiest person in the world right now. And he said, "Maybe that's not your rich." And I remember going,
wow,
what?
That's nice.
I don't know what you mean. And he says, maybe that's not your idea of rich. Rich doesn't always mean money. And he just walked away. And of course, I cannot leave anything alone. So I had to figure out who the hell this guy was. And it turned out that he was in the same position, bigger than I was. He owned multi-million-dollar companies. And he gave them all up to live on the beach and make necklaces because that was his rich. And after I heard his story, I thought, oh, here's the problem that we have. We are all trying to live up to this expectation as entrepreneurs that we think we're supposed to get to, as opposed to trying to figure out where do I need to be happy and fulfilled. And once I realized that the $1 million and the big company and the large employees, the amount of time and effort it took to keep that up was not what I wanted. And I figured out, what do I need? Where will I be comfortable? Where can I pay all my bills, have the stuff that I want, take the vacations, not stress about stuff? Where is that line? And then I scaled down to that line.
Wow.
And I realized,
super smart.
This is where I love
Beautiful,
to be.
Man.
This is how I love where I am, because the stress was gone. The worrying about dealing with 30 other lives and how my actions affect theirs and blah, blah, blah. And all of that other stuff. I realized that
wasn't for you.
That's not where my richness is. And I realized when I start looking for my richness and my success in my joy and my happiness, it changed all of the numbers. And it's easier to obtain. It's more fun to obtain. And I don't have to work crazy hours anymore. But it was a hard road to get there, because everything that we see shows us that the pinnacle of your entrepreneurship, the pinnacle of your life is the large house, is the big boats, is, all of this money. So we're inundated with that all the time. And maybe that is your spot. Maybe that is your sweet spot. And that's where you're going to love where you are, but it doesn't have to be there. And I think we need to normalize that you can be rich and only making, $100,000 a year, but you're happy, you're fulfilled, you get to do what you want when you want. Then you are rich at that level.
This is, gosh, Tanya, this is so, is it Tanya or Tanya? I think Tanya.
Both,
but okay. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Depending where I feel rich today, right? You just have to hit me at the right level. Gee, I know when I first connected with you, sometimes we run into these people and it's like this random happen chance. It's like when I think, so before I say this, it's like I think about your scenario. You're sitting on the beach and you're crying. And now looking back, it was silly, but at the same time, it was very true for you at the moment because your values look different. You hadn't been strategic and you hadn't been intentional about redefining. And if you think about the gift, when we stumble into random happen chance and this whole thing of loving where we are seems to have, it's kind of always somewhat been there for you because you would have had to love the emotion you were feeling to just blurt it out. To some degree, it's beautiful. Think about where your life how it may not have morphed into what it currently is. If you hadn't loved who you were in the moment and blurted it out, and this gentleman just randomly coming by, and then he says these few words to you, it changes your life. And when I say change your life, back to what I was saying earlier, gosh, when you and I first connected, there's something about you that I could just sense. And by the way, for those listening, I didn't know the entire story, but I did know that you were quite accomplished, whatever that looks like. And yet you had chosen, I could sense you had chosen to define what that looked like for you. And what's interesting is I've gone through that journey myself. So typically when we go through a journey, we can pick up on these things. So I remember when I first talked with you, I'm like, hey, who is this woman? Is she are her kids out of the house? Or are her kids still there? It seems like she's married. It doesn't matter. It matters. There's just all these nuance, but all that I could tell is you're living life on your own terms. And I could tell that you had said, I once bought into a narrative and I wasn't sure exactly what it was, other than I knew that there's business, and then you redefined it. But now you had nicely etched out and you'd sketched out a life and you were just glowing. And it's like, there's a human that's free. And I'm like, I like freedom. That's really nice. And my listeners, they need to pick up on this. So listeners, I want you to ask yourself the question. So let Tanya, it's going to be Tanya now for a while. Let Tanya be a gift in the sense of ask yourself this question. What's your definition of rich? And please let it be the fulfilled version. Because if it's just the one that's not sustainable, meaning the thing that gives you momentary happiness, short-term pleasure, it's not long-term gain. It's long-term pain. Okay, so perhaps you want to write down my richness is blank, and then write down what that is for you, what you think it currently is, and then write down what it is you want it to be. I love that. Making a decision. What is it you want it actually to be? Wow, that is so beautiful. I love that. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I want to switch over, if you don't mind, just a little bit. You've talked a bit about social media. And I think social media is a very interesting play. I had a gentleman on a little while ago, and he was a LinkedIn person. And I normally don't have social media people on because I'm not really in that space. Years ago, for the listeners who don't know this about me, Instagram, I was doing these Instagram things, and I don't think Instagram stories had come out really yet. But my sons at the time, Harrison was, 8 and Rowan was 10. So that was 7 years ago. So I've been cold turkey off of Instagram, Facebook, forget it. LinkedIn, you can see, because arguably you get more organic views and it's more authentic. So I'm a little bit there, but not much, but I need to build that out honestly a little bit better. I'm not that great at promoting myself. People find me, but I need to make it easier for them to find me too, right? So I need to do something. But what's interesting is my oldest son at the time, Rowan, so again, he will have been 9 or 10. I was posting something to Instagram. In my post, honestly, I kind of did it for myself because I enjoyed when I had breakthroughs and I was learning things. I thought about how is it benefiting me? And I thought, why don't I just help and benefit other people? The only thing is, this was all consuming to me at times. And you know how it is, at the wrong time. You're going for a walk and you pull out the phone or you're playing Frisbee and you're like, hey kids, just give me a second. I just had an idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Rowan says to me this, we're playing. And this is before he got really into, and of course he's a coder now. He does computing stuff and he's not really into social media, but back then he was like, computers, sure, but we don't need to spend too much time there. But he says to me this, Dad, he goes, Dad, someday when I'm older, and if I have kids, I'll do that differently than what you're doing. I said, what do you mean? I didn't know what he's talking about. Like I was so in my phone. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? You're so on the screen. And then he says, well, what you're doing right now, he says, if you can't observe here, mom and us, were having a picnic, whatever it was, or playing Frisbee, and you're on your phone. And we'd love to have you here, but you're there apparently. So someday I won't be doing this. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness. Okay. It's one thing to just wake up to that like thought inside, but then have your son or your child tell you this. It's like, oh, he's doing something very different. And then that made me think, wait a minute, perhaps I want to do something different about this. And so when I think about social media, and you said social media can be frustrating for you. But the thing is, like you say, it's harder and harder to know what's real. And sometimes you even feel trapped in it. Like walking, this is what you say, like walking through a hall of mirrors, never knowing which one is going to get you out. I got a little story about walking through a maze of mirrors. Listeners that don't know this about me have this weird fear, which is mirrors. I didn't know it until one day we were walking through the Mall of America, and there's a bunch of, my wife said, let's go through this mirror maze. I'm like, that's awesome. So we take the kids through, and she laughs to this day. She pokes me constantly, tells her friends about this. She goes, I took my husband in, and she just like, my husband thinks she can do anything. But then when we go into this mirror maze, she goes, my husband touched the walls and said, kids. And apparently I just grabbed her hand and said, don't leave. Stay with me. I'll find a way out. And I've just been touching the walls everywhere. I've been like white as a sheet. But anyway, talk to us about social media. To the play of having fun. It seems to me like it's pulling from your fun quotient a little bit, but at the same time, you're torn. What do I do? You're wrestling with the concept.
I think for me, it was because, again, it was living up to that, right? You got to post this many times a day. You got to like let people into like your personal life. You have to, you have to be professional all the time. You have to be fun all the time. You have to be that. Like, it was just, it was like I was saying, you're right, no matter which way you are, right? And so I was getting really frustrated because I was like, I don't really like these rules, and it ain't very social if I have to follow all of these rules of things you're supposed to do, and this life that you're supposed to show that you lead. And what sort of made me laugh one day, just recently, I went on holidays, and a friend of mine that I went to go visit is she's an architect and a designer. And she was creating this, she had done this like new floor plan layout. She was really excited for me to see it. She wanted me to go see her show home. So I went to this show home, and all of these people were like in the kitchen. It was just like one girl standing in the kitchen. She was like taking a sip of coffee, and she was getting like some photos taken, and it looked like it was professional, like the person who was taking the photos. And so I started laughing. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Because we went in the bedroom and the same thing was happening. And she goes, oh, so Instagrammers and stuff pay to come into the house and get photos. And I'm like,
wow.
What?
Yeah.
And she's like, and I'm like, wouldn't they all be from this area? She goes, yeah. And I'm like, is their photo all going to be the same kitchen? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, why? She goes, I don't care. They pay me to do it. And I'm like, good point. But in my head, I was like, this is where we've gotten to, that we're taking a photo in a show home looking like, oh, I'm in my kitchen having a cup of coffee. And it's not even your freaking kitchen. Like there's a reason nobody sees photos of me in my kitchen, because my kitchen's ugly. So I just don't take a photo in it. But it would never dawn on me to go into someone else's kitchen to take a photo, to show a life I don't live.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes down to,
that's just a version of inauthentic. Like you say, perhaps my kitchen has got a stain on it, so maybe I just don't want to show that. Not because I'm so overtly concerned that it has to be perfect.
It's from the 70s.
It's from the 70s. Kitchen. So it's an ugly kitchen. So it's not going to bode well. But then the extreme is, like you say, I got to go and now completely plaster myself into some home and let project to the audience that apparently I live here. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. And I mean, it would be different. I mean, I'm a business person. It might be different if I was like a baker. Then I might be like, okay, I don't care. This is my kitchen. This is where I cook stuff. Right. But for me, the struggle that I always go through is I have to stop and remind myself that either I hire someone else to do it who is willing to do those things. But even in that case scenario, I go, it needs to be authentic to me, because I always have to remember, who am I to sit there and talk about being authentic and saying it like it is and living my rich life if I'm always trying to project a rich life that makes sense to somebody else or that somebody else can envy? I really don't care if somebody else envies my life. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. That person that's on the other side of that screen that's like, oh, wow, I wish I had a kitchen like her, is not going to put happiness on my table, is not going to put happiness in my heart. So it was very hard to give up trying to play the numbers game, because I love numbers. It was really hard for me to go, I'm not going to make it about the likes. I'm not going to make it about the reach. I'm not going to make it about the algorithm. I'm going to put stuff out there that means something to me, and it'll touch those people that it touches.
Good job.
But it's still hard. There are some days where I'm like, oh, especially if I go on podcast shows and they're like, how many likes do you have on your, on all of your social media and da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't play that. It takes me back to high school of playing the popularity game. I didn't play it well then, and I definitely don't play it well now. But I think that what I would love to see more people doing is posting the real stuff that happens. So even if it's like a failure or something that blows up, find some fun in it and take it. Like, I mean, if you are that baker and all of a sudden your mixer goes crazy and throws flour, like, show that picture.
It's easy to have fun. For example, when everything is perfect, if we project the image that we own the perfect kitchen, the perfect boat outside, the perfect house, the perfect Lamborghini, the perfect boyfriend on our arm or the girlfriend on the arm, which is actually not ours at all. We just hired them. They're like a model that we just, hey, could I pay you something? It's so fascinating. So what comes up for me in all of this is the concept of ownership. Apparently happiness, society says, is when you own something. So it's a little like, oh yeah, see, I'm just like gallivanting in my kitchen, sipping my tea. Look, there's not a crumb on the countertop. Yeah, because the house hasn't been lived in. There's nobody living in there. It's a show home, or no, look, this is my Lamborghini. I don't know how to drive it, but I got high heels, but I'm like right here by the car. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, just a second. The concept of ownership is getting a little like tiresome. Because ownership actually provides extra weight. And I think to myself, why not instead, there's nothing wrong with owning, but why not we flip owning stuff into owning ourselves? Like you said, what's going to put happiness on my table?
Yeah. And the other thing too is that nobody, like, if you think of the people that you look at and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, I would love to have their life. Do you contact them? Do you message them? Do you feel comfortable going, hey, can you tell me how you did? No, of course we don't, because we feel like they're untouchable. We feel like they're unreachable. We can't do that. So as the business owner, you're doing the same thing to other people, if that's the life that you're living. If you're being inauthentic, the people who truly need you, which I hope that everybody who's out there who started a business is because they want to make change in people's lives. The happiest I ever am is when a client comes to me and goes, oh my God, what you said changed my life. That guy on the beach, right? I want to be that guy on the beach who says something so simple that is so impactful without knowing it. I don't even know if today that guy knows how much he changed my life. He probably doesn't, but that wasn't his goal. Like, his goal was just to
his goal wasn't to transact something with you.
No,
his goal wasn't to get clickbait and get an extra view. His goal was, I'm living my mission. But the key thing is, see, he had to have woken up to his mission and his values. And then he was comfortable and at peace with that. And he saw someone that was just looking to get out of that hamster wheel. He probably witnessed it, right?
And I think that's truly what it is. He saw me. He didn't see me as I was projecting to everybody else. The mogul CEO, the one who's running the business, who's professional, who's always dressed to the nine. He saw the true me. He saw that I wasn't happy, that there was flaws, that I needed help.
Mhm.
And once I showed, hey, I make mistakes just like everybody else, I have weak moments just like everybody else, there was that connection piece there. And so I find that the more authentic we are with the good, the bad, and the motivational that we find in business, the more people go, they get it. That person gets it. They understand what I'm going through. But we try, and that social media, forces us to have this sense of perfection all of the time,
Mhm.
and to not ever say, hey, this didn't work out for me.
Mhm.
And we get scared to say that. And I get it. I mean, I put on a masterclass that I was going to host in June of 2022, and I had one person sign up.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
did I put that on social media? No, because I didn't want to tell anybody. But now I'm like, no, I need to tell people.
Right.
Because
That's to your point of like, listen, when you attempt things, real life is when you, like you say, when you love if you love where you are, then it's like, why are we, exactly to your point? We don't need
why
to
are
let
we
social.
so scared to go, this didn't work? Because now, so what happened was, when I went, that didn't work really well, but I'm going to try it again because I feel like my message is important. All of a sudden people were like, how can I help? What can I do to help? Here's some ideas. Here's, like, everybody always chipped in. And I think we forget that if we are
That's
always,
collaboration. Authenticity
that's
creates collaboration. There you go.
And if we stop feeling like we have to be stuck in the perfection all the time, and we are actually truthful when we're like, hey guys, I'm doing this thing, I need some help, can you promote? People are always willing to help. People always want to help, but they're not going to help you if they think your life is perfect, because guess what? You don't need it.
That's right. 100%.
You don't need the help. You
100%.
don't need me. Why am I going to waste my time doing it? Until we become vulnerable and go, that didn't really work. Need your help, guys.
Yeah.
But people are like, I even think,
and that's how you draw the gifts from other people to the surface and go, have you tried this? Have you tried this? You actually make room for them, make space for them so they can participate with what really is there. And this is how, exactly right. So,
or even to allow you telling your story of, hey, I tried this and it didn't work, which by the way, I tried it again and it worked really, really well the second time around. I got a lot of help. I actually asked, can you share this? Can you help me out? And I had 75 people in the room. So I went from 1 to 74 new ones, because the one did come over. So, but it worked really well. So I'm doing it again. Right. But again, it came down to me just going, hey, this didn't work. I need, I need some help, and being willing to be vulnerable and to say, it doesn't work all the time, because not everything works all the time. The more years I get in business, the bigger and dumber things I try, because I'm like, if that worked, let's see if we can go even bigger, or if we can like expand it and do something else. Like, so my ideas get crazier and crazier. So there's more failure that happens in them. But I think authentic about those, we need to be okay with going, I failed, but take this failure and something else. Because I feel that failure is a pit stop. You can never stay in failure. You can't ever be a failure. So when you fail at something, either you learn a lesson and you turn it into a lesson, which success could be you do it again and it works really well. Success could be you learn that is not for you.
Seems like we have some video stoppage here. Oh, you're back.
I don't know what happened. Do you want me to continue right where I stopped?
Let's just keep going. Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to remember, because I was like, keep your hand there and remember. So either you learn from your failure, or you don't learn and it becomes a mistake. So it's either a mistake or it's a lesson learned, but you can't stay in failure. You can't. That's why I say there's no such thing as being a failure. You can't be a failure because it's not a constant state.
I love that earlier you said, so social media, you started us off by saying you didn't like the rules and it's not very social. When we
Yeah.
think about collaboration, if we don't like the rules and it's not very social, that doesn't like collaboration. There is no collaboration within that. So if there's a bunch of rules and it's not very social, those are the specific things that would negate, that would put an X through collaboration. Like any type of helpful, sustainable, collaborative effort would require that we enjoy the structure. We enjoy some of the harsh or the hard edges, the rails. We enjoy this to keep us, so we enjoy the rules they've structured, and it's also a social platform. So it's a collaboration. There's something about, and so earlier what you're saying, and I'm just going to tap into clickbait and getting likes and how many social media followers we have and all this stuff. Like one of the things that this gentleman who I talked with about LinkedIn, he was talking about LinkedIn actually has a setup, like the whole system, the ethos is set up where it will, almost punish you if you're inauthentic to your value. And so I like that. I'm not saying that it's 100% that way, but I kind of like that angle. It's like, you know what? At least it engages a little bit less of that. I'm putting time into things, but really it's a waste of time. Speaking about, I had a little situation happen a little while ago. It was really fascinating to me, which by the way, if people say to me that they have like 10 million followers, and that's why they want to come onto my show, I typically just say X. I'm not saying 10 million followers isn't great, but if that's going to be the focal point, I'm so uninterested. So there's a little story that happened for me.
Yeah, but 10 million doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean. And so this is what's fascinating. So I had this gentleman, he reached out and he had this amazing profile, like the way he pinned himself. I got these followers. I got this amount of people on, of course, TikTok, all these different channels, which I'm not interested in TikTok and these things, but whatever, it's his game. That's totally fine. That's his play. And so I thought to myself, hey, listen, this would actually be, I'm listening to some of his messaging, and he had been suicidal at one point in time in life, and he turned his life around. I'm like, to be honest, I wouldn't mind having him on my show. Perhaps I want to talk with him first a little bit. Right. And so as we're talking, I said to him, hey, listen, do you have a podcast? And what I thought of myself is I'm going to do a stress test. I said to him, why don't we just do a podcast swap? And I did this for a reason, not because that was my offer or my invitation from coming on my show was so that I could be on his, but I wanted to see what he would say. And he said to me, oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, well, I only take on famous people. And I said, oh, and then you still want to be in my show though? He goes, yeah, see, I'm promoting my thing, so I like to be on your show.
I am famous, so that's perfect.
And that's just absolutely horseshit. Pardon the language, but it was just like, I just said to him, I think we need to keep going. And it's, so I am famous too. We're all famous, but here's the thing. I have some pretty deep connections to some pretty famous people that I have on my cell. I can text or email, but you know what? I didn't want to bait him with that because he may have allowed me in, but I don't want to play in that space. So what do you think about this? There are some people, and it seems like maybe a stage of life, and it's not them and us. It's just a stage of life. It's then and now. Some people are a little more trying to support their need for enoughness through behaviors of anxiety. Like, look, I'm sipping my tea here in the kitchen that I don't own, but it looks like I own this microwave, which hasn't even opened. The sticker's still on it. You know what I mean? So there are people who do this. And then there's others that maybe have done a version of that, because I revealed to the listeners here that I once did a version, not quite like that. I didn't, it was authentic. I did authentic posts and different things, but even for you, right? You had a moment where you were once striving for something, and then you woke up to something different. Like, what's your take on how can, and I don't know if this is a good way of looking at it, but is there a way that we could feel, release and just letting them do their thing? Because I'll be honest, I struggle sometimes when I see that fakeness, it angers me. Mm-hmm. But is it, do you think it'd be helpful for us just to release those people, but just let them do their thing, just realize it's a stage of life, and then we connect with it? Like, that's what I'm trying to do for myself, and I've done for a while. But what's your take on this, so that we can own the piece of social media that's helpful to us? Because I think that's what we're kind of saying here. We're not saying social media is evil. We're just saying we want to do it on the terms that feel congruent within how we show up in life and the value set we have. What's your angle on this?
I think no matter what you're looking at, you have to realize it's just a picture.
Good point.
Period. It's just a picture. Like, you don't see the outer sides of the photo or what is going on in that person's life. I mean, if somebody would look at pictures of me from me 10 years ago, I looked super successful and happy because I was always smiling in all of my photos and I always looked like I was having a really great time, but I wasn't. So we don't really know what is behind the photograph. And I think we just need to, to sort of keep that in mind. And I don't think there's anything wrong with dreaming. Like if you want to take a photo in a show home and be like, this is my dream one day, 100% do it. Like, I think we need to release feeling upset about what other people do. Because does it impact you?
100%.
It really doesn't impact me. Those people who took the photo and, 5 people are going to have the same kitchen in their photos. It doesn't really affect me. It doesn't.
And you're going to miss the opportunity when a random happen chance gentleman walks by who you could just unfold to, who could potentially say something that would, something small that would change your life. We miss that if we're focused on that.
And I think the other thing too is like when you were talking about people who, because I see this a lot in the podcasting world, right? Like I need to know exactly how many followers you have before I'll have you on the show.
I know. Yeah.
I don't follow that script because some of the most brilliant people I meet, do not have tons of numbers of friends or like huge amount of followers, but the ones they have are solid. And it always reminds me of a funny story of, what is his name? I think it's Adam Sandberg. He used to play in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's like the funny cop. I believe this is his story, but he was talking about how he was never on Facebook and he met Mark Zuckerberg. And he was like, what do you mean you're not on Facebook? And he goes, I'm not on Facebook. I don't know how to use it. And he was like, you need to get on Facebook. I'll show you how to do it. I'll help you. And he was like, fine, but you have to be my friend. And then he was like, yeah, okay. So he has, I don't know if it's still true to this day, but he has no other friends. Just his only friend is Mark Zuckerberg. So I was like, so here you have a person who has one friend. If you were to look at his thing, you would be like, I want to interview somebody who's really good at Facebook, not interviewing this Adam guy. He has one friend, but the one friend is the biggest friend you could have on that platform. But because the number is 1, people go, not good enough. So when I heard that story, I mean, he was just saying it as
quality over quantity all day long, right?
Right. So I think sometimes we need to get away from, being so reliant on the numbers and thinking that high numbers mean anything. I mean,
that's so interesting when you say we need to like back off the numbers. Hey, listen, we all have accountants. I have 2 accountants in my practice or what I do. So I got accountants. The only thing is I have accountants, so I don't always have to just think about numbers. So if we look at everything through that lens of numbers, it's like, hey, wait, we're missing the mark. If it's transactional based versus missional, we're going to miss out on a lot of juice. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah. And really at the end of the day, like, because a lot of people are talking these days about like legacy, like what do you want to leave? Like, how many people do you want to touch? And for the longest time, I was like, hundreds, I want to reach thousands of people. I mean, as a speaker, you get those people who are like, I want to be like Tony Robbins. And now I'm like, no, one. I want to reach one person. That's my goal in life, to change one person's life.
Well, and
the reason is because that guy that was on the beach changed my life. And to me, that was everything. So I think if I could do that to one other human being, how fulfilling would that be?
Well, you know what's strange to me, Tanya, when I hear, now I was going to switch to Tanya. Sorry, Tanya. I don't know why. I'm just playing. Just stuff going on in my brain. I don't know if I'm bipolar today, what's happening. But what's really interesting, right? To your play on what you said about Tony Robbins. Like some people were like, I want to be like Tony Robbins. What's fascinating, if we really were, and I'm sure many of us have tapped into his story and listened to his heart, he's actually genuinely concerned about one. That's who he's genuinely concerned for. He started like that. He's still like that, right? I spend time with his in-laws. They live like down the road. We become friends with them. So he's still like that. I mean, I don't know everything about his life, but I do know a few things about his inner life. And what I'm saying is it's so interesting how society, we see, for example, the Tony Robbins, But then we somehow think that he got there by sipping tea in a show home. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It starts with one and then another one. But you're always content with one. You're saying, can I listen? Am I listening to the pains of the world? Am I listening to the frustrations of the world? Am I listening to the things that bring people greater joy and make people connect in a deeper collaborative way? Am I listening to all that? And what's coming to the surface for me? And would I dare to activate my courage to speak up, even though I'm not in their life, but I think I might have something to like offer value here. And this is what he does. And he changes one, then he changes two. But that's the idea. So, if you could talk about collaboration, because you say something, and this is what you wrote to me a little while ago. You said why hourly rates don't work well for growth inside most collaborations. So what about hourly rates and collaborations? Those two just don't really mesh well. What is that? Because I think we need to kind of parse out a little bit. And when I say parse out, I met a lady a little while ago, and she's this spiritual teacher, which fine, I love it, fantastic. But then I got to know her a little bit, and she said this. She goes, I asked her, what are some of the frustrations in your life? What are some of the joys? We just talked edges in life. And she goes, I'm truly frustrated that I'm not getting paid my monetary spiritual worth. I'm like, what?
I don't know what that means.
So what she's saying is, I'm a spiritual being, but I'm not getting paid money wise. So she's attaching money to helping. Exactly. We don't know what it means. She was attaching the concept of her value in money. Isn't the fact that we're spiritual beings like the gift? Do we demand payment for that? Like, how is it that we don't think that's fair if people pay us less or more? And so I guess where I'm going with this is, I'm trying to parse out hourly rates and collaborations. Those two don't often work well together. And it's like spirituality and money. It's like, okay, you got to be careful on this, because spiritual, you're just here to help, to genuinely serve a human. And now, right?
So when I first started in business, my first business was doing accounting. Which is very hourly based, right? Mm-hmm. You go to school and then they talk about, this is like what the hourly rate is to start at. And I think we get stuck in that because our first job, you're paid hourly, right? So we attach that worth to it. And I did that for a lot of years, right? But there's only so many hours in a week. And there's only so many billable hours in a week. So for anybody out there, you cannot bill 40 hours a week. It doesn't work. Because you can't work 40 hours straight. It just doesn't work that way as a business owner. But what I realized I was doing is...
Okay, wait, can you help us understand what that looks like? So what you're saying is...
So if you figure there's like 40 hours that a typical person works in a week, but you also have like breaks, you also have emails that you need to answer. So not everything you do throughout the day can really be build straight out. And then you have some days where you just don't really accomplish a lot, right? So sometimes people, when they're doing their math, they're like, okay, so if I bill, whatever, $100 an hour for 40 hours, this is how much I'll make a week. And then they go, I never make that. Well, because it's unrealistic, right? But the reason I stopped doing hourly was two reasons. There's only so many hours you can bill in a week. And the better I got at my job, the worse I got paid. So think about that. The better I got at my job, the worse I got paid, because the more efficient I became, something that took me an hour only took me half an hour now, because I have more experience and I'm better at doing it. So now I'm only billing half an hour because I'm faster, but it's still an hour's worth of work, right? But we forget that.
So you're not monetized by improving efficiencies or effectiveness. You're not. I get it.
No, you're screwing yourself out of more money because you're being more efficient.
If anything, you're just hiring more work. Yeah, you're just hiring more work.
But you need to be more efficient to bring on more clients to make more money. So you get stuck in this little back and forth thing.
And this is why I can see what you're saying. To rationalize this, the human being goes, well, listen, I'm going to like a potty break. I'm going for a tea sipping break in the kitchen, or I'm going to turn on the coffee maker. This is why you justify and reconcile. It's okay to put them into your hours, because it's if you feel like it's not justified, that you need to become more effective, more efficient, and just hire more work. And really, you're hiring more problems. Yeah.
So mechanics are really good at this. So mechanics usually will have a scale. So they'll say like and this is how I learned about this. Cause I was like, this is
You are a
brilliant. Why am I
mechanic?
not
You
using
became
this?
a mechanic?
I wasn't. I talked to my mechanic and I was like, why is this build the same? I had my brakes done twice, like 2 different cars, but was charged exactly the same thing. And I thought it was weird. So I asked, this is how my mechanic, and maybe not all mechanics are like this, but this was mine.
Yeah.
So he says, so it's 3 hours. It's a 3-hour job. So it's 3 hours for an average licensed technician to complete this task. And I was like, but you got my car but like I had my car back in like an hour and a half. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, but you still charge me for 3. And he goes, because that's how long it takes the average person to do it. I'm not going to penalize myself because I did it faster. But
industry
on the
standard.
other side, it's an industry standard. But on the other side, if I have somebody new who's working for me and it takes them 5 hours, I'm making less. And I was like, this is a brilliant model. I need to play around with this a little bit more, because I realized if I start charging a base rate for my stuff,
because how many times do people ask questions about that? You drop your car off and they call you, you go pick it up. You don't know how long it was in there. Go ahead and listen. Yeah. Base rate, you're saying?
Yeah. So I charge a base rate for all of my stuff. I don't do hourly anymore. And I don't tell people how long it takes me to do stuff. But I figured that out to know that I can start making more money. So if you charge $5,000 for something and you figure it's going to take you 10 hours and it only takes you 5 hours, hey, I guess at the end of the day, you made more money. If it takes you longer, you made less. But the other thing that this does is takes the stress out of me having to punch a clock. Because as an accountant, I'm not kidding you, there's literally timers that are on your desk that you hit. And I made my staff do this too. You would literally sit down to work on something, you would hit the timer. Like it was billed by 5-minute increments. And we were regiment about that. Everything was listed. When I changed the whole business over to just being base rates, nobody had to mark their time anymore. What mattered was the quality of the work that was getting done, not the time. All of a sudden, our productivity went up. Happiness of the employees went up because they weren't having to clock every second of the day. Work was getting out the door faster, and we were able to all of a sudden bring more clients in.
That's
fascinating. At the same rate and make more money.
That's fascinating. So I've had several businesses, and one of the things that I've stumbled into, and in majority of the people that I've aligned with have been, I've chosen to collaborate via contractor base. And so I didn't do the hourly. It's just for myself, it was risk aversion. I'm an asymmetrical. I mean, in business, there is risk, but of course you want to minimize the best you can. And oftentimes employee can be the greatest risk. But all that I happen to know is whenever I've dabbled in contemplating the hourly concept, I've always heard in the back of my heart or soul or someplace, exactly to your point, you can sell something and sell it as a transaction or sell it as a piece of value. Can you imagine Pablo Picasso saying, I'll sell you this art because you're going to have about 15 emotions over 30 years or whatever it is. And for each emotion, I'll charge you X. So it's a transactional base. Or he says, no, I'm selling you a piece of art. And so my value is here and you get to decide. So in some way you're simplifying, but I got like massive respect and honor for you. Like you parsed out like by 5-minute intervals. That's very cool. Like you're saying, listen, we're going to be honest. I love it. And I love how you took it so far and then realized actually the culture of the team, it's not. So these are not rules that people are really, if I be honest, are really enjoying. And wow, that is just incredible.
Yeah, because what it also did, and I still use this model to today, like all my employees, nobody is on hourly. Everybody is on a salary rate and no job has the same rate. I don't even have that set out. I'm like, how much do you think you're worth? And that's what I go off of. But what it's allowed them to do, and what I find is there's so much more initiative and ingenuity that ends up happening because they have that freedom there. Because when they were stuck to a clock and to a time, it was all about just getting that task done. And what ended up happening, I'll use,
and then you're missing all the nuance. If it's just about getting the tax, you're not seeing.
It was about doing the data and making sure that it was done, that the taxes were entered, that all of the lines were crossed. When we got rid of that, it probably took about 3 months. all of a sudden our clients were like, I love this new thing that you're doing. Because what was happening is the staff was starting to notice things and we're saying, hey, I noticed that, your telephone bill was a little bit higher this month. Was there a reason for that? So all of this customer service started coming in because they weren't punching a clock. It was just, here's the deadline, get it done. Well, when do I have to do it? By this date.
Your clients are beginning to feel like you folks are working with them.
Yeah.
Not just for them.
And giving the employees more freedom in their job and in the hours that they work. Because I say, I don't care when you come in. If you working means that you prefer to work from, 6 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock at night, because that's your zone of genius, then work then. I don't care as long as the task gets done. This was not easy for me. I'm very much like punch in the morning, punch out. It took a long time for me to get over that mindset of, the normal work hour day. But once I started doing that, I realized, oh my God, they were so much happier. My retention was also a lot better because people loved it. They could work when they wanted to work as long as they were meeting the deadline. So they were happier. They loved their job more. And it worked really well too for those that had kids, because they could leave at 3 o'clock to go pick up their kid and they didn't have to worry about it because they knew they could work a couple of hours at night if that worked for them.
Man, when the human being is reduced to just putting a bolt in a hole, like that's they say that in Western culture and around the world, actually, we currently have a realization that we beat the Nazis because we were the ones that built a bigger badass war machine where we said, listen, we're going to really laser down. One person will put a bolt in the hole. The next person is going to drill the hole. And everybody did the same thing, just constant. It's like, mechanics, machining, just boom, boom, boom. And it's interesting because we attach that we beat the Nazis as a survival mechanism. So we think there must be benefit. And to a large degree, if we're not careful, a reductionist mindset. It's like constantly reducing the human down to a robot is not what the human thrives in. The human is going to fight you on it.
Well, and what happens even for yourself? So even if you're restricting yourself to that, like, to use your example, you drill the hole, you put the bolt in, drill the hole, put the bolt in, drill the hole, put the bolt. That's all they're going to do. That's all you're ever going to do. When you take that away, then all of a sudden someone goes, if we drilled the hole and then did this and this and this, it would probably go a lot faster. Or, hey, why don't we not use a bolt? Why don't we, like, if we did a rivet, all of a sudden, then people start imagining different ways to do things. And that was so true for me in business too. Once I took my mindset off of just drill the hole, put the boat, do this. This is the task of exactly how we do stuff. All of a sudden I started going, there's better ways to do this. My staff started going, here's some great ideas. All of a sudden, everything changed. The way we do business.
Yeah. It sounds to me like what you did is, I don't know if other listeners can relate to this, but typically in the first half of, at least my first half of life journey, it was like, well, if it's going to be success, leave it to me and I'll get it done. The door is there. I'll knock it down. Like, so leave it to me. I'll conquer this stuff. I'll make it happen. But then all of a sudden, one day we get kind of tired, and it's not just like we're kind of sleepy. We're just kind of exhausted. We're like, is there a better way? So what I heard you just say is all of a sudden you allowed something to become greater than just thinking you began to think in terms of we. And so all of a sudden you're soliciting not just specific thoughts on the mechanics of what they're supposed to punch in, but they're thinking outside. Like, actually, I'm becoming aware now, like you say, the telephone bill is rising. So you're looking at nuance and you're beginning to add additional benefit. And so you, as somebody who, if I observe you today, so you're not sitting in some fancy corporate office. I don't know where you are, but you look like really comfortable. You might be in your home. You're in a really nice space. You're in a good energy, whatever. And you have all these supports around you. And so there's lots of we's all around you. This collaboration, it's like the power of two versus the power of one.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was a hard lesson for me to go, I am not the best at doing everything.
I know that is tough.
I am not the best of coming up with every idea. So yes, I'm in my home. And the reason I'm in my home is because I had a large office that I was paying a lot of money for and employees were coming in. And I sat them down one day and I said, where is the best place that you liked to work? And all of them said, we really loved it when COVID happened and we all worked from home.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, okay, let's close the office. And I remember them going, what? And I'm like, well, nobody comes in to see us anyway. So here's the only thing that's going to change is we might have to go and visit clients a little bit more often. But who cares? If that's where you're happy, then let's do that.
Wow.
And,
good on you.
And so, and that's really what it was all about. The aftermath of realizing I just really needed to open up and go, hey, do you guys have a better idea? Here's what I'm thinking. Like, I thought the office was a great idea for us all to come together, but do you guys have a better idea? Can you make this even better?
Okay.
They did. I accepted it. And then all of a sudden the fall from that was, we had more money because I didn't have all the expenses of the office. So at the end of the day, I was like, their help saved me a ton of money.
And
but I just needed to ask.
You asked them the question, and then they all looked at each other and they said about at the same time, it would be helpful if we did this. And I think so often the business owner is contemplating, well, I own, so which means I'm the one that should know, right? Like I'm the one who's flying in the helicopter up there. Like I'm the one that if I make a small minutia of a pivot on the joystick too far, I could crash this thing real quick. And so the truth is, business owner, we are in the air. The accountant's fantastic, but they're on the ground. They give instruct, but the owner still gets to decide because any little movement that he decides here can crash this. So it's true. So, however, at the same token, it's like, though we're flying up there, whatever there is, I'm not saying we have to be up there because we're not looking down on our staff. Sorry about this, but it's not a hierarchy thing. But if we're flying up here, we're flying somewhere and our people are saying something, I think it's such worthy work for entrepreneurs to find a way in a healthy way to allow the voices of our team not to, and of course this is obvious, but why would we let them threaten us? Threaten us towards like what we don't know? Is it true that we might not know everything anyway? Is it true that we build our strength from both securement and insecurement, from both we know and we don't know? It is true. And so why not instead use the gift and activate these people instead of just saying, drill a hole, put a bolt in it, drill a hole, pull. No, don't talk to me about anything that you're becoming aware of. Just do the mundane and keep that static task. In my opinion, what you've done is you've activated humans now, like to some degree. You've activated, I mean, you've done it for years, but you've come along side them. How would you, so one of the questions I have for you is sometimes entrepreneurs will ask me this question. So I would like to know your perspective. So I have my own take, but I'd like to hear your take. How do you help entrepreneurs stress test in the most helpful of ways so that when they execute maneuvers, like what you say, work from home, that productivity, and granted, productivity is without we don't have business. Truth. But we also have to ensure that the human feels supported in their way. So it's not either or, it's both and. How do you help entrepreneurs stress test what's most beneficial? Because in some industries, people say working from home isn't great, right? How would you help entrepreneurs in that space?
Try it. We get so stuck, right? We're like, no, we need to know the exact answer. I would have never quickly jumped had we have not had COVID and all of that stuff not happened. COVID was a beautiful gift for us to be able to sort of beta test if working from home would actually be something that was beneficial. So we almost had that beta test. Now I still do little beta tests with new things that I want to try. So it's not necessarily that you have to jump full force into it, but if you have an employee, using this example, if you have an employee that wants to work from home and they think that they're going to be able to do that, then beta test it. Maybe you only do it a couple of times a week, and then you're sort of testing.
Beautiful.
Is there productive? Is this still working the same? But giving them that opportunity, you have to try stuff or you're never going to know. And sometimes that means you try it and it doesn't work, and you're like, you know what, you're not a person who can work from home. We got to take this back. Or sometimes you go, this is amazing. They're doing even more. Like, let's build on this. So just try it and linger. You don't have to jump right into the lake. I mean, you can use the ladder and kind of step down into the water and see if it works from you. But it's true what you said, like as business owners, we do see the bigger picture. And sometimes my employees will come to me with stuff, and they've been with me long enough now that they know my sense of humor. So I'll look at them and I'll go, well, that's just stupid. Like I'll say it to them, but I will always explain why, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I'll go, this doesn't make sense because again, as the business owner, I know how everything works. I know the whole structure. I also know stuff we've tried in the past. I know the clients, blah, blah, blah. Like I have all of those pieces that they don't necessarily have. But I always go, there's going to be something in what they give me that's going to be usable content. And the best people to ask how to do the job easiest is the people that are doing the job. We forget that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 100%.
We forget
That's
that
a
because
very
they're
good point.
doing
That's a
it
very good
all the
point.
time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's that old saying? Like, if you want to figure out how to do a job fast, give it to the laziest person. It's so true, right? But sometimes we like to think that we can overcomplicate things. And the hardest lesson I would say I ever had to learn in business is that I am replaceable. And that's okay.
It's funny, just like everyone that for example, if we're the owners and we see bigger picture, we as the owner are replaceable just like everyone else.
And that's okay.
That's
because
right.
If I'm being
100%.
replaced, it usually means somebody's buying out my company, which is an awesome position to be in. So I'm okay now with being replaced. Because sometimes it's time to go. Sometimes it's just time to move on to a different project. But I think sometimes we hang on too tight. I'm the only one who can do this. I'm the only one who can do it to, the level that I want or the level that I think we need. And when we hold on too tight, you will always then be the only one who can do it. And isn't the idea of business that you are not there all the time, that you don't have to do all of the things? To be able to accomplish that, you have to allow other people to do it and other people to fail. Some of the biggest aha moments I've had is allowing my employees to take on a project and something going wrong with it. Because let me tell you, that does not happen again. And that person who fails, that never happens again in their entire career with me. Like they learn really good lessons from that, but I have to let them fall, because if you just go, don't do this, it'll turn out bad. I always think of me as a teenager.
Sorry for interjecting, but that's, I think, what allows you were just saying prior to this, us recording the show, that's what affords you the ability to go on a road trip, and a lengthy road trip. Like you're able as an entrepreneur, you like to think anyway, you're an entrepreneur so that when you leave, you don't leave so that there can be more drama at the office. You leave because you've created something, and that it's an ethos and a culture, and it's going to maintain and sustain. And so it's like, why not give people to some degree the very same opportunities you give to yourself, which is, I'm going to try this. And so sometimes we as owners, and I've done this before, where I'm like, actually, the rationale behind this doesn't stress test out through any way that I think makes any sense. But what I need to think about is they're looking at from an employee standpoint. And instead of me always educating them about what it requires in business, I've realized sometimes it helps me to go, you know what, I think this is helpful that I now make sure that I get really keen on what could an owner learn from the perspective of an employee here and their rationale. And then, like you say, give it to them to do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The main thing is they rise and fall just like you do. So then they understand it's the whole mechanism, right?
Yeah. And there's a difference between, like people always, say you got to keep some stuff. And I used to do that. I used to like not tell people certain things because I felt like that was like my zone of genius. And now I realize I give everything away. All of my knowledge, take it all, because
you got too exhausted holding it back. I think when that man met you on the shore and said, "What's your richness?" You're like, "Yeah, it's just coming out."
And I think what it also did for me is it helped me, because I hate this term, so I'm so sorry. I hate the term ideal client because I struggled so much going, I don't know who the hell that is, but it really helped me to attract the right client to me, the right ideal client, when I let it go, because my ideal client is the one who understands how much work it takes and doesn't want to do it. Because Beautiful. That client never complains about my rate, pays on time because they get it. The ones that will come and be like, can you tell me exactly how many hours is in this package? I'm like, you X. Nope. thank you for coming again. Here's
Yeah.
some other people that you might enjoy, because
Beautiful.
I know they're going to
Yeah.
nitpick everything,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. And then you're going to have to, and then you're going to be tempted to think about, perhaps you should go back to that time clock, and your culture doesn't like it. Working from home doesn't support it.
perhaps I should charge less. But
Right.
like, and people ask me all the time, like, how do you raise your rates? I don't know. When people start paying for it and nobody questions it for a little bit, I'm like, I'll raise it and see. And really, it's me just going, I wonder if somebody's going to pay this much for this. And then they do. And I'm like, holy crap. All right. And then I just keep going on in that cycle. So I'm scared every time I raise my rates.
Sure. We all are.
But again, it's taking that chance. It's just dipping your toe in and seeing how it works, allowing other people to help you, asking for help, because you cannot collaborate with anybody unless you go, I need help. Because the whole idea of a collaboration is you're teaming up with somebody that has a gift or a skill that you don't have or is more advanced than yours. But nobody is going to want to collaborate with you if you don't need their help.
Yeah.
You have to be vulnerable
you have
for
to
a
make yourself
collaboration
open
to work.
That's right. And I love that. That's so we're gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pivot. I got 2 or 3 final things to ask you. But I think on collaboration, that's well said and beautifully said. You have to be vulnerable. You have to open yourself up. You have to be willing to say, there's something about this that I have no idea about. Like, I have a little thing when people ask me about certain things, and even if I'm well read on it or I've studied something, my common go-to phrase is simply, though I might know something about it for myself, I have no clue of the perspective you hold on this. So I want to hear everything you have to say about it. Like, I literally just say, I know nothing about your perspective. Can you tell me? Because it's in the perspective that we actually learn and glean and all those things. Right. So, okay. So you already shared some areas of deep winnings. Share with us an area where in life, when you just failed miserably. And then also share with us, and so this isn't your say, oh, this is heavy stuff, but I know you can handle it. My listeners love this stuff, and not because we're ripping you down, but it's just real stuff, right? So where have you really failed in life? And the second thing is, in which specific area in your life do you struggle most in now? So share as much as you like.
So my biggest win, my biggest loss, and where I struggle now. The biggest win and biggest loss is the same thing. So that was building. So the biggest win was building the multi-million-dollar company up. And the biggest loss was walking away. Because it was emotionally draining for me, because everybody in my life, with the exception of my mother, tore a strip out of me on how stupid I was to walk away from something that was so successful. So I really struggled, thinking I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. What am I doing? Is everybody right? And a lot of people saying, how could you be miserable? Like, you're doing so well, you're successful, blah, blah, blah. And so I was really, that to me was the biggest loss, because I felt like I really needed to do this, but I was letting everybody down. And that I felt like I was a failure. Like, I failed at this. I couldn't do it. How can you not be rich? Like, I failed at being rich. What? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And so it was a long time for me to come out of that and to learn all of these lessons. So for me, my greatest win was also my biggest loss. Wow. And which is a good thing now in hindsight, right? We always got to look at hindsight. I'm glad it happened the way it happened. Right now, I would say my biggest struggle is staying authentic and bridging the gap between telling it like it is and not hurting people's feelings. I struggle with that. Because sometimes I will bump into people that, and this is such a bad way to put it, but this is going to tell you how strong sometimes my opinion is. People who need to be told that they're pretty and lovely do not get along with me. They will always think that I am a B word. Because I don't have that capacity to think ahead of like, I need to like, you're pretty, you're beautiful, I love you, you're still really great. I'm really like I said, and this happens in my personal life too, right? But I told you that I loved you like 2 days ago. It still stands, like, until I tell you different. So I really have to work hard on making sure that I am aware of what it is that people in my personal life, my employees, and even myself actually needs to hear, and make sure that I'm fulfilling that, and that I don't take for granted that they just know. They just know how I feel. They just know how I think. And because to me, I feel like I'm being authentic, but I think part of being authentic is also realizing that other people need different things than me. And I need to recognize those things and make sure that I'm giving them those things in a way that's authentic, in a way that I'm not like writing stuff down and going, okay, Lily needs to be told that she's pretty every day, right? But part of that is me actually going to people and saying, if I'm not giving you what you need, I need you to be honest with me and come to me and say, hello, you're not giving me what I need. And I'll snap out of it. But sometimes I get too hyper focused and I forget about the people who are around me.
Gosh, you know what, like that, I think, just to that point, thanks for sharing. That was like super awesome. I think to be vulnerable, to be the giver and also the receiver can be something that is, and it can be quite challenging, I think, for people, because it actually activates a whole bunch of discomfort. And most people, we've been, especially in this day and age, we've been taught if we're uncomfortable, if it's not safe, we don't respond. Like, I never asked you really how your day was going. I just was looking for a nice, it's fine. But now you're telling me everything about your life. What are you talking about? See, the guy you met on the shore, he realized who you were, right? And what was happening. So there's, to the point, like, I think authenticity, and I got many perspectives on it, but like you say, telling people how it is, and so the read that I have on you would be like, hey, you're just sharing in your humble opinion how it is, and it's for other people to like take on how they want to take it. But like, I think what we all understand, we're seeing, is everybody does a day and they do their moment maybe a little differently. Even if Lily, which by the way, for starters, and this is not to help solve, because I don't think you have a problem, but if you want to like be gentle with lilies, if you see lilies and be like, they're pretty, you can say that to lilies if you like, and like the lilies of the field kind of thing, right? But no, it's just a funny little play. But I think that's super. No, I absolutely love that, and I think, man, I don't know what you think about this, but ultimately we have to know our strengths and our weaknesses. And our weaknesses aren't something that are sent to take us down. They're there to keep us real. Because when you said the thing I struggle with most is authenticity, I was going to go, you? Really, you? Because I see you as being very authentic. And what's fascinating about this is people often say, well, so if I would want to be really good at something, then I should be the best at it, right? I should be really good. The only thing is, when you study analysts and dynamic thinkers, they talk about, you never want to be like a perfect parent or a perfect boss or any of these things, because that means you've bought into the role so much that if somebody just comes along and says something that pokes you a little bit the wrong way, they've thrown you off. So you're threatened at any little boot, basically. So you want to be just a good enough parent, just a good enough boss, because that keeps you humble. When you say, I struggle with authenticity, I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. I love you struggle there, because that's what's creating this world that you got, this beautiful world you got, where you get to go on a vacation and you get to be yourself and you get to stay humble and you get to be like, I get to be about helping one and my richness lies here. That's beautiful, because it holds you to the fire, right? So I love it.
And I think what I strive for is that my greatest strength is also my greatest weakness. So being authentic with people is my greatest strength, but sometimes it can be my biggest weakness too. And I am one of those people that have learned that when I ask a question, I only ask it if I really want to know. And that resonates with people, because I could be standing in line, any line, it doesn't matter. And I will turn to somebody and truthfully go, how are you doing today? But I feel the question. Like, I really want to know. And my husband will just be like, who the hell was that? And I'm like, oh, that's Linda. Her husband is going through surgery. He was having some problems with his kidney. And I'll go on for like 20 minutes telling him all about Linda and her life. And he goes, how do you know her? I just asked her how she was doing in line. Right. And I took it for granted for so long.
You sound just like that gentleman. Do you see this, right? This is
Yeah.
fantastic.
But what I realized is
Mhm.
that when we authentically ask questions of other people and are willing to hear the answer, sometimes that's all people need.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's all people need. They need to be asked the question, and they also need for me to be willing to go, I'm struggling. I need help. It is the hardest question still to this day for me to say. It's hard for me to say to my, and they all know, like anybody who's like in my circle, they know, because
They
I'll
know.
come and I'll go, so, and I'm fidgety and I'm weird and I look nervous. And so a lot of the times they'll just go, you're struggling and you need help. And I'll be like, yes. Right. Because it's hard for me to get the words out because I'm used to being the strong person, being the one with the answers. But again, when I feel that weakness, I know this is when I need to use it the most. So this is when I need to ask.
Perhaps, Tanya, what you need to do is the next time you're in front of the mirror and you're doing one of these crying things and then the laugh comes when the timer goes, you just need to do FaceTime call when you're crying, because then they'll know. So, hey, I'm wondering,
that's a weird narrative. So
hey, if it works, you see what happens, right? Hey, listen, I'm wondering if you'd like to play a little game with me. And the game goes a bit like this. So I have a little cue card, and on the cue card, and I did this for myself years ago, and I read a book or something like that. I've never done this before on a podcast, but I'm wondering if you want to play this. And here's what I did for myself, and I'll invite you to it. And so, at the very top, I wrote, "What is mine to do in this life? What is mine to do in this life?" And then I have 4 things. So for me, and I'll use these lines. So for the first one is to lean in and listen. Number 2 is to then experience. And number 3 is to then live within. And then number 4 is to then drop into. So for example, for me, it's like, what is mine to do in this life? It's to lean in and listen attentively and without distraction. To then experience with an open heart and a insatiable hunger, and then to then live within a new courage and a new trust to radically accept myself like never before. And then number 4, to then drop into life-giving grace of surrender, that it actually always has been about giving of myself that actually matters everything, not the perfection of it. So it doesn't have to be this long, but I'm wondering what your things would be if I cue you up. And so I'd say to you, Tanya, or Miss Tanya, whatever you prefer. What is yours to do in this life? So number 1, to lean in and listen. Finish the sentence. To lean in and listen. What would it be for you? Or actually, don't even use to lean in. Say whatever you want.
What is mine to do in this life? To learn to love myself the way I am today.
Which would allow you to experience what? To then experience what?
Joy. And happiness, which is the secret of life.
And that would allow you to live within what?
That would allow me to live within my own truth.
Which would allow you to drop into what? Ultimately, you drop into what?
Authenticity. And the ability to help others to see their own authenticity.
Wow. Oh my goodness. You should write a book about authenticity, by the way. That's beautiful. Because you know what? Somebody who deeply says it's my strength and my weakness and owns it the way you do. I feel like tears coming up in my heart somewhere, but that's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much. So you've been an absolute pleasure. You were a hit right from when we began, and I was a stumbling, mumbling fool, and that was good. I hope it was good anyway.
It was good. I loved it.
Okay, fantastic. So anything you want, any words of wisdom or any final gifts you have, if you have a gift, if not, great, but any words of wisdom, anything that comes to the surface for you, any final little thing to offer people, and where can people find you, please? Yes, I almost forgot.
Yeah. So I think the biggest, there's 2 quotes that I have on sticky notes that are on my desk right behind my computer. They've helped me, so hopefully they will help someone else. So one is, we either make ourselves miserable or strong. The amount of work is the same. And the second one is, there will always be someone who cannot see your worth. Don't let it be you. And those are my 2 truths that I hold up on my desk on sticky notes. So those would be my words of wisdom that I live by, and I hope others will too. To find me, the easiest way is just to head to foxtalksbusiness.ca. They can connect with me there on all of the social media platforms, as well as Fox Talks Business. They can find my podcast and everything. And on my website, I have a lot of things that they can do. I have a Know Your Worth exercise to help people sort of put into perspective how much they're actually worth if you're stuck in that sort of hourly rate. Because sometimes we forget everything that we've invested to get the knowledge that we do in our head. So that's a fun little exercise to do. And they can find that on the website as well.
That's wonderful. It was an absolute pleasure. And guests, go run over to her show. Just trot over to Foxtrots. Just kidding. Just go over to Fox Talks and check out, this wonderful human. So thank you so much again. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you again.
Sounds great.
With inflation rates rising, interest rates shooting up, gas prices skyrocketing, and the continued global unrest, it's easy to find what's wrong in the world. Tony Robbins says, what's wrong in the world is always available, but so is what's right. Instead of trying to hope and wish the world into a better place, it's time to make the most important decision any of us can ever make, and that is to invest in yourself. Now, you already know that I've always stood with you as you've navigated the uncertainties of life's reality. However, it's now high time that I step up and take decisive action to walk alongside your current life journey by making myself available to you in a radically new way during these challenging times. For a limited time, I'm inviting you to a 45-minute strategic business life consultation at no charge and no strings attached. This consultation is where you'll regain the reins of your life. It's where you'll gain clarity on exactly why you're stuck, moving you directly towards your optimal outcomes. I'm humbled to say, however, my clients' generous reflection of their time spent with me reveals the truth. The skills they've been able to master in a short period of time by engaging in our one-on-one strategic sessions have changed their lives in so many ways. This is the only invitation that I can fathom that will put my skin in the game of your life in such a way that will allow us to address your specific needs with precision and excellence. 45 minutes, just you and I, together on a call to get you headed in the direction you crave most. Here's what my clients report after our one-on-one sessions: a decrease in indecision, an increase in clarity, confidence, and courage, an increase in fully being able to capitalize on what's directly in front of them, an increase in impact at work, on their families, and on their communities, a decrease in pain and suffering, and a decrease in anxiety. So, if you want to move beyond old stories, get clear on where you're headed so that you can shake your world, then here's a rich opportunity for you today. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com and stay on the page for about 45 seconds or so, and you'll see a little pop-up appear that will allow you to book in your business life consultation with me. This offer will expire and fill up. Maximizing this opportunity will set you up to reclaim and regain any of your inner power that has slowly been drawn down over these challenging times. And remember, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. My sincere hope is that you've gleaned a few nuggets for yourself and a few pieces of interest that help you move forward in your unique journey. So again, I thank you for joining me here. This is James Hepner clocking out. Until next time, peace out, rock up.